So no doubt Microsoft is going to have a hard time kind of differentiating their console from, everything else, just for the simple fact that they're going to be putting their games on everything. And I know what some people are going to say. They're going to go, well, isn't their next console going to be able to play Steam? And so wouldn't they be able to play PlayStation stuff? And, I've had a couple different responses to this. We haven't heard anything legit released or announced yet, so it's really kind of hard saying. But I will say, from a legal standpoint, Microsoft can't release a console and brand it as a console and advertise it as, oh, well, you can play PlayStation games on this. They can't do it legally. So the way that I kind of equate that is, look at Nintendo. If Nintendo comes out and goes, here's our next console, and it plays PlayStation and Xbox games, they couldn't do that. They would get sued. Now, what Microsoft can do is release an Xbox branded PC, and that could have the ability to play other things. But there's a huge difference there. It's a whole situation with like emulated games and things like that as well. It's like you can't sell emulated games because that goes into sort of, when you kind of emulate things, the law looks at it as sort of you're changing codes, the codes and things like that, and you're not allowed to do that. So that's why you need permission to do the emulated games. That's why the backwards compatibility program ended. But this is somewhat good news, and so it's exciting to kind of see, and hopefully this ends up working out well for everybody involved. But I want to get into it. Hey, I'm Crap Gamer. This is Crap Gamer Reviews with another video. Thank you so much for checking it out. I certainly appreciate it. Like, share, subscribe. I would appreciate that as well. Certainly, I do daily gaming content if you guys are interested in that. I try to be fun yet informative, so yeah, that is, something that is definitely awesome. And if you guys enjoy it, hey, let me know. So anyway, there is a huge rumor right now that Microsoft is going to be doing some more backwards compatibility games, and these are going to be specific ones that they own now, that they own Activision Blizzard, and they would be able to kind of go into it and easily get the licenses since they own them now. So if you want to look at like the huge list of games that Microsoft owns through Activision, it's quite easy to kind of see that, and we could be seeing something like that on the horizon, which I think, listen, would be a fantastic thing, because at the end of the day we want to see as many games as possible. So if we get the idea that stuff like this Deadpool game, or there's a ton of Transformers games, or a ton of other games that Activision published, that we could actually get again, and I think that would be fantastic, because we lose so much over time, thanks to this idea that gamers don't actually own anything. So that's so weird to me, and it's like I've noticed an uptick in people that are like buying DVDs again, buying Blu-rays again, trying to buy physical media. And you don't have to look any further than and I'm not a huge fan of this, but Christopher Nolan, and he was talking about his Oppenheimer movie, about how they worked hard to get like the 4K Blu-ray and the Blu-ray out, that way you could have it and own it in your collection and just not be reliant upon paying a streaming service to get it or whatever. See, you buy it, you own it. Like, I don't care what people try to say. To me, that's the right way to go about it. If you buy something, you own it. It's like, I still have some original NES games in my original NES. So if you have that stuff, then you have the ability to play it, as long as you have a capable platform that still works. And that's the way I've always looked at it, and it's like, for me, I always think it's strange when people kind of go, oh, well, it's the future or whatever, it's the future, digital's the future, or streaming's the future. It's like, man, how fast do you want to pay $80 to $100? Like, we're paying $80 a game now. You can imagine somewhat in the future it'll be $90 and $100. People really want to pay $80 to $100 for the ability to just stream a game and not own it, not be able to play it offline, or I can't see anybody really being okay with that, right? Which means the only other option would be going into and using a service like Game Pass or whatever the case may be. But Game Pass doesn't get all the games. That's the problem, right? So you have to look into that and go, okay, well, these companies really want you to be, they want to be like a Netflix, right? So what does Netflix do? So Netflix, they are a service, and you can pay for them, and they're cheaper than buying physical things or whatever. But when you buy the physical things, it's like interesting because you can buy the things that you want. Where like a lot of the new releases and things like that don't go to Netflix very quickly. So that's like a big problem, going forward and things. So I think it would be cool to get more backwards compatibility stuff out of Xbox. But I also think that if we could see just like I think the future obviously is kind of going to always be in flux. Just don't be so easy to kind of go, okay, well, the future is the future, and there's nothing we can do about it. I think that that's something that we can avoid very much. So if we just kind of band together and stick together, in my opinion, I don't know for sure if we'll see a lot of these things kind of change or whatever, but I think that if people kind of stick up for what's up, then I think that could definitely go well for the fans. I just want to see the game survive, and I want to see gaming survive in general, and hopefully that's something that they continue to kind of push and let people know, hey, gaming's here for the long haul, and we want to see it be supported and things like that. So anyway, to me anyway, it's really interesting, and I honestly think that what Microsoft is doing is a bit strange at times. But if they can get more backwards compatibility, then with like Xbox 360 stuff, then I think that gives you a little bit of an edge over the competition, because it doesn't sound like Sony is very interested in doing backwards compatibility with like PS3, PS2, PS1. They seem pretty content, and that's my main worry too. Is like there's so many games that are stuck on the PS3, right? Like you might be able to stream it or whatever, but that's still being stuck on the PS3, including, like, I know it's not a Sony game, but Metal Gear Solid 4, you've got the Resistance trilogy, you've got all these different games and things like that. There's a couple kill zones, there's like really cool games like Infamous 1 and 2, and Puppeteer. There's just a lot of really cool stuff that's kind of stuck on that platform still, and that's a real drag, because I think there's some great stuff that would be even fun to play nowadays. And of course I keep a PS3 hooked up just because of that, but at the end of the day, I think it's really on these companies to make sure that they deliver what they've promised all along anyway. So I hope that we could see kind of something from for the future of what's going on with Xbox and stuff like that. At the end of the day, it just really kind of comes down to how these companies want to do it. Like, listen, none of these companies, and I'm very honest about this, because people think that, I'm a huge PlayStation fan, or I'm a huge this fan. Not really. I mean, I always have preferred Xbox, but here's the thing when it comes down to it, is that none of these companies are our friends. None of these companies are to be trusted. I see people that try to go out there and trust Microsoft. They're like, well, Microsoft, they probably run the numbers and do this. It's like, listen, did Microsoft run the numbers with the Xbox One when they thought everybody wanted, a Forced Connect, $100 more expensive platform, DRM, check-ins, no used games? I mean, listen, they're not going to do things that we want. They're going to do things that they want, and I think that is probably the big issue there. So like I said, I don't trust these companies. I wouldn't if I were you guys either. I think it really kind of comes down to kind of what the gamers should want, and I always feel that way. And it's always a shame when people just kind of roll over for these corporations and just like, oh, hey, it's we're definitely going to just bend over for this or whatever. Like, that's the wrong attitude to have, in my opinion. I think it's really important to kind of make sure that, if you're a gamer, that you have the stuff that you want and the reasons why you paid for the platforms in the first place. It's like, if you bought something like me, I bought an Xbox Series X when Microsoft announced that they were buying ZeniMax, that because Bethesda games were going to be exclusive to where Game Pass was. So, hey, sign me up. Sounds good to me. And then, of course, they kind of went back on that, and that's a real shame. But, at the same point in time, it's just like one of those things where I have to kind of just shake my head and go, I hate being lied to. I know corporations do it, and all of them do it, but it's like, Microsoft, they can't figure out a correct way to go, and that is a really, really bad thing, in my opinion. So, I don't know. It's just, it can be a real shame. But what games would you like to see come back? Like I said, the Deadpool game is a good one. There's some really good Transformers Transformers games. There's a ton of stuff that Activision had for a certain amount of time that now Microsoft owns, and they could easily go back and do. I hope we get some announcements for that soon. That would be awesome in my opinion. Anyway, thanks for watching. Rack 'em up. Crab Gamer out.